Well, okay, it's 5:32, so they can join us a little bit later. So I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton's Community Development Authority to order. And the first item is the roll call, Abby.
Barker.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Furlong.
Here.
Nelson. I saw Katie.
Yeah, I see her too.
Are you doing roll? Sorry.
Yes, you're okay.
Hands.
She's here.
Okay.
And what about Oaks? I don't think I saw Oaks still. Oaks is not here. Olson.
Present.
And Weber.
Here.
And Brar is present.
All right. Okay, well, the next item is the approval of the minutes from January 13, 2022. Need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve. This is Kieran.
Okay.
This is Barron, I second.
Okay, all right. Any questions or comments?
One comment under staff, Van Nest is listed as staff. I think we should change that to other present.
Oh, oops. Thank you for noting that.
Excellent. Anything else? Okay, if there are no further comments, all those in favor of approving the minutes with that modification say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Okay, Abby, look back at the events funding from 2017 to 2021 and proposed 2022 budget. I have to say you did a great job going back to there. So it's very informative.
Thank you. Hopefully it'll help the committee think about how to use your funding in 2022. 2022 is a little bit unique just because we have the Madison Community Foundation grant, which is for $15,000 in programming for the Stonehorse Green. We have 1 year to spend it. So that would be September 1st ish of 2022, or whenever we're able to get the green open through the end of August of 2023. So I was thinking maybe we could push partial funding of Strollin, partial funding of Fall Fun, and also the holiday tree lighting, which is gonna become Light the Green, onto the grant. The CDA could still fund a portion if you want to participate in those events, but we should use the $15,000 that we have because I think I honestly think it's gonna be a bit of a struggle to come up with. We're gonna use all the money because we got the grant, but I think it's gonna be a challenge for us to find enough events to spend that whole grant.
Abby, what's the big swing on tree lighting? A couple years it's 2,000, sometimes it's 500. I just think this year it's going to be more expensive as the first time it's happening at Stonehorse Green.
Yeah, and I don't have a cost estimate for 2022. I was just including in the CDA. I was just showing what I thought maybe the CDA would want to fund from that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I bet it's going to be a lot more, especially if we're buying lights, because our goal is to like heavily wrap everything. And the first year we'll buy LED lights. So hopefully we'll get more than 1 year, worth of use, and they'll have a low electricity draw. But, our first year we'll have a heavier cost because we'll have to invest in the lights.
Mm-hmm. Unless
we're able to negotiate something. And we have been talking to Electronic Theater Controls about helping us with that.
I think it should. Awesome. Yes. Go ahead, Kathy. Sorry.
Also, I'm just looking at $1,000 for Fall Fun. If we're really going to do a rig hurrah when the Stonehorse Green opens up, I think we should up that a little bit too, if we're looking to spend the $15,000. So. Yeah,
and I was just showing, what I was trying to show was how much of the CDA budget you might want to spend. So I'm sorry, I probably didn't make that very clear, but what I was trying to say is this might be the CDA's commitment, knowing also that there will be some funding coming over from the grant.
Okay, so these are, okay, so this is in addition to the grant. Okay.
Yes, yep.
Gotcha. I did not understand that.
Are you done, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah, thanks very much, Abby, for putting this together as well. And agree with Kathy's comment on the fall fund, but I think I got it right. This is just the CDA portion that would go alongside the grant funding. And some of these things are actually called out specifically in the grant, right? Yep. Art walk was in there, mustard day, I think, as well. Strolling was an art walk for sure, right? And the holiday tree lighting. In terms of just trying to understand this with respect to our existing budget, right? So marketing assistance, are we kind of wrapping that under the new role of the, events coordinator and a manager or whatever title is going to be on that? Is that correct?
That's correct. There is not any budget line this year from the CDA for marketing assistance. We just have the $7,500 for direct sponsorship.
Okay, right. And as I recall, part of it is we intend to provide some kind of assistance in our sponsorship in kind, I guess you might call it, with the event coordinator helping with some of these events. Is that right? That's correct. Yep. Okay. It should be, we should come up with some way to try and make that clear when we have these requests coming to us, because they're going to come to us with, hey, we're looking for $3,500 and it's to do this, this, and this. And we'll say, well, we can help with that line item, with our marketing or with our events coordinator. It's going to be hard for some people to say, you're not giving us money, you're not sponsoring us. We're like, well, no, we're going to give you, this person's time, and they're doing all this, time and time again, so they'll be good at it. So that's just one comment. And then the other thing was just to confirm, so that's 7,500, that is what's in the current approved CDA budget for sponsorship, right? So that's kind of our full budget. All right. That's and the whole thing. And it's already spoken for essentially with these amounts here. Yeah, this is supposing that a new event is not going to come forward and request funding from the CDA. And this is just an idea that I wanted to put forward, but we can obviously change it any way the commission wants to. Right. And already the art walk, we're asking for 2,500, right? From they CDA. They asked for 2,500, and I let the committee know that I was going to suggest reducing the amount because, I heard the conversation at the last meeting, and that is a big chunk of the budget. They have decided that they're going to be seeking business sponsorships, and they have a list of businesses that they're going to be reaching out to, and they've developed sponsorship levels. So they do have, they haven't gotten any more dedicated funding yet, although they're going to the Tourism Commission on the 15th, and they're requesting $1,250 for marketing from tourism. And then they're also sending out this business sponsorship letter, which they've already developed. So I felt like the CDA could reduce the amount that could be allocated to them. Okay, I think we come to that on the agenda later anyway. And then the asterisks, the reasons that the Art Walk and National Muster Day don't have the asterisks is the MCF grant only initiates September 1, and these events are happening beforehand, right? Yes, and they're also not located at the Stonehorse Green, although the Art Walk would have been if it were open. So in future years, they'll probably have a presence at the green. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess my overall, these are events that have come up year on year. So I think that makes sense. Just a little concern that we don't have any space for something novel or new that comes up, because we'll see what summer throws at us. We'll see what Stonehorse Green, how that proceeds. So it would be good if we could have a little bit of leeway on some of those items to have some additional space in the budget. But do we have any other line items where we can pull from miscellaneous expenditure? We do? Okay. I think we reduced the miscellaneous expenditure from 5,000 to 1,000. Let me look. Here, I'll look at the packet from last time. Where did it go? I have too many screens open, so I don't know where things are opening. Sorry. Let me see. Right. Not that. Yeah, the miscellaneous is only 1,000. So there's 25,000 in downtown snow removal. I don't know if you all can see this. Let me share again, just so I can show you what I'm looking at. So you have 25,000 for snow removal, 5,000 under senior center building maintenance, which usually doesn't get spent. 7,500 in the event sponsorship. We talked about that. 10,000 in banners and holiday lights. That's for setting up and taking down. It's not to purchase banners and holiday lights. It's just for the maintenance. 15,000 LTE plus the $21,000 for the new position. 18,000 from downtown landscaping and maintenance. And the last item is the miscellaneous. So you don't really have another line that you could easily pull from, with the exception of maybe the senior center building maintenance for 5,000.
Right. Okay, which we need to do the maintenance. Okay, look, and I just wanted to make sure we had all of these wraparound details for the discussion. I think in principle, it's good to know, okay, here's what our intended allocation is. It also helps a bit when groups are coming to us looking for sponsorship, you know, that we've got a certain allocation in mind. But I just do worry about, you know, an unforeseen or unexpected or new event that we don't know about. That's all. But, you know, want to hear from the rest of the committee. That was just my comments on it.
Anyone else? Please raise your hand. I don't see it, but okay. So Dan Barker and then Mike Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. To kind of just go along with what Kieran's saying, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, well, Stonehorse Green, something's probably going to come up that they're going to need to cover. And it's not going to be too big, but something will come up. And I think kind of that fund to help would be good. And I also think, I realize we won't be able to do stuff down there this summer, but what if we did stuff down on Terrace there by the Capitol Brewery and try to get some things going a little bit, you know, maybe once a Thursday this summer. Just an idea. And again, I don't know if there's no money, there's no money, but I can see maybe something on there I would be okay if we cut funding for. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Mike Davis.
Not to get too optimistic here, but there is a chance with snow removal that there could be a significant amount that might not be used this year. So for one-time events, programs, there might be some leeway. And I don't know, Abby, you received those bills from B&E, but it seems to me like it would be pretty low so far. So knock on wood that I'm not jinxing us for the rest of this winter.
That's actually a pretty good idea, yes. Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised though, because they come out and salt when there's any ice. So they have been out working. I can pull that up and tell you. We received the bill for January.
All of February and March to go too. So there's still a lot of time for snow.
The January bill was $1,555 plus $37.60. They bill two items separately, so that's why it's. So what is that? That would be just over. It would be about $5,200 so far.
If you did that again in February and March, there could still be, you know, in the neighborhood of 10,000 available.
Well, we'll need to save some for December.
Right. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
The full cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, you're done. So anyone else?
My point is, you should be able to, by an April CDA meeting, have a pretty good idea of what it looks like for this winter, and then preserve enough that you can cover December.
And also, like Abby said, the senior center 5,000 is not commonly used. So we would have the money, and then there's a 30,000 in some of those items which could possibly part of that come available too. So we'll see. That's a good idea. And let's not belabor that too much now. I think we will be able to find some money if we need to. So my question is that, have we talked to this, the mustard folks? Would they be really very unhappy or super unhappy that their budget from 6,000 to, will be much less? So did you have any chance to talk to them, Abby, or somebody? Or?
No, I haven't talked to them, but I did go back and look at the minutes from their approvals in 2021. Mm-hmm. And they were the CDA first approved 3,000 and then approved an additional 1,000. And I don't think either vote was unanimous. Certainly the second one was not. I felt like the CDA was trying to let them know that they would be reducing the amount for future years. So that's the only reason I showed it as 2,000. I wasn't trying to, you can change this in any way you want.
No, I just wanted to know that, since they had, at one time they were, earlier used to ask, well, 50% city pays and they pay other 50%. And last year, and, it came down, and then 1 year, because it was virtual, so that was much less. And I just want to, how are the other members feeling that, well, that's how it is. They will be able to use some of the services of the person we hire, but their biggest expense is the stage and some of the other things. So do you guys feel 2,000 is okay? Okay, well, that's how it is. So any other questions?
Right. Yeah, just on your question there, Mayor, I think in terms of being equitable and looking at different events, I think when applicants can see it, this is a public meeting, right? And the materials are out there public. People will say, well, there's different events and we're trying to support a number of events downtown. And I think if, folks are getting advance notice as well, they know what to expect. So there's a positive to that side as well, in terms of the information out there.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we will make them aware. So, well, they will probably look at these meeting minutes. So, yes. Any other questions or comments? So, Abby, this is mainly for the information, right? You don't need any vote, do you?
Yeah, this can change too as we go throughout the year. The CDA can still take event requests on a case by case. I was just trying to show you how we would need to reduce some of the amounts for the events because we only have 7,500. So it's up to the committee to decide what you want to do.
So Dan, you have your hand up. So are you so
yeah, not to keep beating up this point, but yeah, and I was going to say exactly what Kieran said, and I think it's worth repeating. If you look, it's the same amount for all the groups. So I think it's kind of equitable and fair that each group is getting the same slice. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, super. Okay, so Abby, should we move to the next item? This doesn't need any vote, right?
Yep, no vote. I'll just take your comments and include them in the minutes.
Okay, we go to item number 2. This is the request for $2,500 in CDA event sponsorship for Art Walk in Middleton. So, well, I guess we probably just need a motion to approve, or do. I think that's a good thing to do, so.
Yeah, and I can give you an update on where the committee is at with their planning if you'd like.
Okay, go ahead.
We went to the License and Ordinance Committee earlier this week, and we got some feedback that we're probably going to need to slightly scale back the road closure so that we're not affecting access to Aurora Street and the properties east. But I still think that we're going to have plenty of length of roadway that will be open and available for tents and artists and demonstrations. We've accepted about 10 artists, but we still have applications to review that are coming in. We're trying to make sure that we get a diversity of artists. And we have a list from the Madison art coordinator of some minority artists that we want to invite to apply. We also have a couple of arts organizations that work with disabled artists, and we have one application from one of those organizations as well. So we're trying to make sure that the event is very inclusive. We do have a little bit of a hang up with the idea that we were going to expand the premise of the Capitol Brewery and fence the entire roadway so that somebody could go and buy a beer at Capitol Brewery Beer Garden and take it out into the area where we're going to have the tents and demonstrations. And that's just mostly around whether the Capitol Brewery can expand their premise that far, which our city attorney is looking into. And then also the cost for temporary fencing that is required, construction fencing. So we have a committee member that's looking into that. I mentioned that we're applying for funding from the Tourism Commission. Let's see. We just put out a blast on social media targeted to artists, inviting them to apply for the art walk, and we've boosted that. So hopefully we'll get a lot more applications rolling in over the next couple of weeks before the deadline. We also have sent information out to our databases, which is about 400 artists that are relatively local. So that's about it for now.
So you think that you probably will get enough of artists to participate then?
Our goal is to get about 50 that we can accept into the walk. So we have had a couple that we've had to reject because they weren't a good fit. But yeah, the goal is to try to get 50 artists, and the committee is pretty confident they can get to that. Okay, excellent. Okay, any questions or comments for Abby? I think it's okay. Dan Barker, please go ahead.
Thank you. Abby, is it 2,500 or 2,000?
The request was 2,500. So I kept it on the agenda the exact same way that I had it last time. I just copied it forward. But in the budget that I proposed 2,000 rather than 2,500, which is what was requested.
So she would like a motion for 2,000 rather than 2,500 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
And I would like to so motion, Barker, so motions.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second. This is Katie.
Okay, second by Katie. Any further questions or comments? This is a pretty important event. You know, if Abby has problem with money, I think she can always come back. And she knows it, so. Okay, I don't see any raised hands. All those in favor of the motion to approve the request for $2,000 in CDA event sponsorship for the art walk in Middleton, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wow, we have even the dog saying aye. That's a good.
Sorry.
Okay, so the next item is the report on the Business Improvement District workshop and discussion and the next steps. It's Abby and the others who participated in it. So I think Kathy was there too. Okay.
Yeah, I was. Hey, Abby, I sent you an email just a little bit before the meeting and it had some of the graphics in that Daphne had captured. Did you get that? I don't know if you can.
I will pull it up here.
Okay. They're not essential then. Yeah, and Andrea's on the call too, and she can chime in anytime you want, Andrea. The big thing about the bid and any successful bid is the partnerships that it forms with all the moving all the people in the downtown or in the area from the city to the county to any housing authorities, the chambers, economic development. The presentation was attended by, probably 8 different communities from around Wisconsin, all of different sizes. I think we had Mount Horeb and some smaller ones, and then there were some bigger ones, all trying to find out if the bid would be the right fit for them. But the presentation was based upon Ithaca, New York, and their path that they took to form actually a couple very successful bids. And their bids were very big and ambitious. They started out by determining they seek like 144 city blocks that they wanted to include in the bid, but it was voted down because it was so big. And then they scaled it back, and they got it down to 2 years later, they got it down to 22 blocks, and it was a much more manageable size, and they were able to successfully pass it. What a bid is when you have enough property owners agreeing, there's a special tax levied on the properties that go into this bid that pay for whatever the bid is determined that it wants to achieve. And in the case of Ithaca, they had an executive director, and he did a lot of the economic development for the area. And theirs was really a really ambitious bid. And I don't know, Andrea, if you would agree with me, but it just seemed out of scale to what we were thinking about. So
it was much broader in scope than what we probably need, formed by very specific objectives to revitalize basically a crumbling downtown that was losing market share to all the malls on the outskirts of town. It's a little bit different than what our objectives would probably be.
Yeah, that's right. A couple things that the bid is very specific about. Bid services have to be additional services offered that aren't already offered by the municipality. Just because you have a bid, the municipality is still responsible for doing the services that they have up until that point. And any bid initiatives are over and above that. The city can't lower their services within that bid boundary. In the partnerships they have to form as a memorandum of understanding. It has to be enacted between the city and the bid to spell out the current level of services, what they provide, and what the bid budget would be, and what the selected improvement district is. Abby, you want to go to the next slide or the next page? These were the steps that Ithaca, New York used when they were forming their bid. First, they had a 15-member steering committee of volunteers, and then they decided what their boundaries would be, held public interest meetings, and then they wrote the plan, circulated it, vote, and then hopefully it passes. So that was their method of formulating their first bid. I'm trying to go to the next slide, Abby. Wisconsin has they passed the legislation in 1984, and there's currently over 90 bids in Wisconsin. Some have fulfilled their purpose and have been terminated, and they can be found in communities of all sizes. And there is there's a program with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation called Connect Communities that we should look into a little more, I think, and find out how that would serve us in Middleton. And with a bid called Wisconsin Main Street. We have to find out a little bit more about that, I think. The next slide, it just kind of talked a little bit about some of the things that they used, they set out as their goals for why they would want to have a bid. And a lot of economic development was a very big portion of that, transportation and revitalization. So that's what that is. Yeah, and it just, when I left, I felt like Middleton is in such a good position. There's still things we need to do, but not on the scale that Ithaca did. We do have things we can work on. And Andrea and I talked a little bit about what we felt could be next steps. And Abby, I couldn't remember if you said Bill Ryan would be willing to meet with us or some of the property owners.
Sorry, I had muted myself so you couldn't hear me typing. He did say he could meet with us. He was also willing to have a larger group. So if this is something we want to pursue, we could invite more downtown business representatives, more CDA folks, really anybody, downtown property owners could come. So we could reach a broader group, I think, with him.
And typically the business, the property owners would have to take the lead on this, not the city. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, and we can be supportive of anything, but if we want to reach out to Bill or to like the and there also were some other with communities with bids that said they'd be willing to, the leadership would be willing to meet with us also. Is that what you got, Andrea?
Yes.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, how's that? Andrew, you got other things you want to add, please?
Yeah, there were a couple of thoughts that I had. The definition of what is downtown is obviously pretty important because the state law, this is legislated by Wisconsin state law, 51% have to approve of this creation of this district. The reason Ithaca failed the first time is they were so confident that they had this great plan. They said, the initial committee said, everybody's going to love this. We're only going to pass it if we get 75%. And I think they hit over 51%, but they didn't quite get the 75%. So that's why it disbanded and they went back to the drawing board. But how do we define downtown Middleton is obviously important because the property owners have to come together within that geographic definition. And, you know, I went into this initially thinking of it more
frozen
to a dense diversity of business.
Yeah, we can hear you, Andrea.
Bids can be from one very specific purpose up to a very broad range. And so that sounded interesting to explore.
Right.
And I'm sorry if we already figured this out or if this has already been addressed and I'm just not thinking of it right now. But if it's a special tax, does it apply to tax exempt properties? Because we have a lot of tax exempt properties in downtown. Would they still pay it?
I don't
know that. I don't know that. And I don't even really know if that was asked. I could check my notes here.
Okay.
There was a group that also attended that's based here in Madison that had a lot of resources and support. The two women, Kathy, I can't remember what the group was that they were from, but we have local resources here in Madison that can help us work through this.
Oh, that's
so
great.
Abby, you're thinking of churches and the other?
I was thinking of the city and the two large churches downtown. But I mean, the city owns a lot of property downtown too.
I would imagine the city and the churches wouldn't be part of it. Don't know. Mike, you want to say something?
Yes. Were there Wisconsin folks presenting this, or was this all from Ithaca, New York?
It was hosted by Bill Ryan, but presented by the people from New York. So
because in New York, they have more flexibility for their local government, so they may actually have a tax. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that's the same in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. They did mention that. Yeah, they did mention that across the United States, bids come in all under all kinds of titles, shapes, sizes, or whatever. Right. Andrea, the two women that you were talking about was Christian Fish Peterson and Dania Saver, and they are part of redevelopment resources. Mm-hmm. And I think they helped create the bid in Janesville.
Yeah.
Did they present
there were Wisconsin specific people on the call, like talking about the Wisconsin specific legislation and how it works in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. But we didn't have time in the meeting to get into a lot of that detail.
Because my impression of bids is normally that they are assessments for a specific service or function and not taxes.
So they would apply then to tax exempt.
And if that's true, then yes, they would apply to publicly owned properties and not-for-profits as well.
But it's good to find out. So I think since we have over 90 business districts here, so let's see if who's going to get that information. Would that be Andrea or Kathy or Abby or all of those?
I can find out.
Okay. Okay, so that is a very important question. That's very important question. So, okay, okay, Dan Barker, go ahead, please.
Is it possible to have more than one bid? I'm thinking it's awesome. Downtown's doing it, but what if someone on the east side of town, if a group of those folks got together, could they, it seems like it's privately initiated, could they do it as well? Thanks.
Abby or Kathy, or I would say yes.
I haven't heard that they couldn't do it. I just know, like in Ithaca, they did a bid, and then they did another one years later on top of that. It seemed like that they had more work they wanted to do, and they redefined it a little more.
Sure, I was more thinking, you know, our charter is focused downtown. I'm just wondering if some of the businesses outside of downtown have any type of organization or need that.
Well, the Connect Communities that I read just briefly about with Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, they were talking more about the downtown areas that they were partnering with, is what I understand, if I'm recalling correctly.
Kind of traditional approach, Kathy.
Excuse me, I didn't catch it all.
Kind of a traditional approach, just to focus on downtown with these bids.
I couldn't say.
I don't know necessarily that it's mostly downtown. That's where the definition of the geography becomes important. And one of the communities that talked, or they gave examples of, the further out the boundaries go, the less you could start to tier the benefits that you get within the bid. So that some of the businesses on the fringe of these broader geographies, not just businesses, but whatever the entity is, didn't necessarily feel that they would get the same value. And so they could have tiered approaches like, well, you might still get the hanging banners, you know, showing that you're part of this district, but maybe you don't have to pay as much to get whatever the specific support for an event, because people aren't likely to come to the event and then trickle over to your area. So it really comes back to the definition of the geography. And
well, I was going to ask, who decides those boundaries, Andrea? Is it the private or the government?
The steering committee came up with that. The steering committee came up with it, and then you have to get approval or agreement from all of the property owners within that geographical definition.
Majority.
So part of
the council to vote on it or anything like that. It's all privately agreed upon. Is that accurate?
I didn't hear the whole question.
Yeah, you're not an expert. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I didn't.
No, that's okay. Yeah. My understanding is it's all property owners. So again, if the further out it goes, that would include residential property owners as well. Sure. And there has to be a vote, and there has to be agreement of, I think the Wisconsin legislation is 51% or more.
Sure. And I was more just pointing out that it doesn't seem to really be something we necessarily needed to chime in on. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Mike Davis.
I found an item on bids, a fact sheet, University Extension Office online, and they do talk about bid assessments and how they are determined. They determine them based on a proportion of the individual property's assessed value, but they can also be based on parcel sizes or frontage footage. And for example, in Eau Claire, the lowest district assessment, this is from 10 years ago, was 60 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. The highest was in Milwaukee, $6.60 per 1,000 assessment. Obviously, these could have changed from 2012, but they do talk about it in terms of assessment.
I have some data from 2019, and it said that the average of all bids were set at $3.23. So that lines up with what you're saying. Mm-hmm. They said that there were 48 bids that reported into this data, so that we had that. And the average operating budget for a Wisconsin bid is $300,000. So, and not all bids hire a executive director or manager. So that's
it all gets back to what's the objective of the bid. I do think that they're required. Is there a board required to help set the priorities and direction?
A five-member board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's required by statute, 5-member board.
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
it's a minimum, isn't it?
It's 5 to 9. Yeah, 5 to 9.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a lot of useful information, so it will be up to Andrea and her friends to decide whether they want it downtown here. But Katie Nelson can also talk to the folks, along the university corridor. Maybe Katie and Emily, they have that district. If they want one too, that may be actually even more important. So I think, so Abby, your job is to facilitate Abby and Kathy and maybe Katie. Katie had at one time shown interest that she would like some sort of a system to help her businesses there. Katie, what do you think about it?
Well, I think it's a very interesting idea. I don't have a feel of it as much as I did before, but yeah, absolutely, I could look into it. I think Emily and I could kind of do a little asking around and see if people are interested.
I think the key is going to be finding some very motivated property owners, and that's who you have to identify that. I think it's probably going to be.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the businesses in that area that you're thinking of, Mayor, they don't own the property, and so it would have to be the landlords. Yes.
I see. So they may not really be agreeable to it. So, well, anyway, unless you explore, you're not going to find out. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it might make sense though, since we already know that there may be interest from the downtown, to focus on the downtown and see if we get that one off the ground. And then it's possible the university corridor and Century and Allen, others might see the success and then kind of choose to do it on their own. I'm happy to help facilitate, and I would also be happy to help put together like mapping for prospective boundaries, databases of the properties that are within those boundaries, which we can put together really easily along with assessed valuation. I just clicked on Middleton Center Phase 1 just to get an idea. So that's 2 buildings, including the long table building, and that's assessed at 19.9 in improvement value, 19.9 million. But that would result in about $6,000 if you were to go with $3 per thousand. Just to give an idea, like Kathy said, I think the average is 3 per thousand. So for those 2 buildings, you'd be looking at an additional $6,000 per year being paid into the bid. That number doesn't really scare me. It seems reasonable. I don't know what the impact would be on some of the others, but I think we could put together, a database relatively easily, looking at a few different scenarios for where we would want to draw the lines. And I think one of them should follow what we identify right now as the downtown, which actually goes all the way up Parmenter to the roundabout. But then we can just kind of play with the numbers once we have the database and decide like what makes sense.
So somebody may need to broach this with T. Walsh. He's the, when you look at Phase 1, 2, and 3, they will be all in the district. So unless he's willing to pay, that would become a difficult thing, right?
He asked me about it. He was in favor a couple of years ago. So
Mayor, he wasn't pass that on to his tenants.
Right. We would all pay for it. He's not going to, you know, it would be put into our CAM just like all the other expenses that he incurs in the building. Gets passed on to all the tenants. And that's where the challenge of what's residential versus commercial. Because the assessed value that you just quoted, Abby, I think that's total. And, you know, a lot of that square footage is residence, not just commercial.
Right. So there's a lot on a lot of that to residents. You know, he'd have to increase the rent for his residential tenants. Right. But you could also make an argument that if you have a bid in place, you're going to have a much more desirable place for those tenants to live. Right. You're also going to have more activity, more amenities. So you are making the living environment more attractive to them. I would be concerned about income restricted housing, but we don't have any, with the exception of the Parmenter Circle. That would probably be somebody we would want to reach out to, because if we're going all the way up Parmenter to the roundabout, there is one low income housing tax credit development on the west side there, and those developments, they're not going to be able to pass on costs to tenants because they're fixed. There also is some naturally occurring affordable housing on the west side of Parmenter Street, the Rolick Court area. That would be another key factor that you might want to consider, because you might want to just look at, you know, the business side, which is the east side of Parmenter. I mean, we can play around and look at different scenarios, but we wouldn't want a bid that's pricing people out of their homes. You know, I mean, I don't think anybody's interested in doing anything that's going to remotely come close to.
I have a technical question about if you know, T-Wall who wants this, but it's, you know, Long Table who would have that passed on to them, who gets to vote on whether or not there's a bid? Is it the businesses that are having it passed on to them, or is it the landowner or the property owner? I suppose someone who's an expert in it could answer that for us.
I think what Ithaca's case study showed is that's what they held it open for public input sessions, but it's the property owners, I think, who vote. So that's a great follow-up question to see. You know, from the DMBA's perspective on this, you know, one of our kind of strategically, the way that we're thinking about downtown kind of fits with what an objective of a bid could be, which is really to bring everything down. Downtown Middleton is the destination, and it's not just about the business association or the storefront businesses. It's about all of the amenities, from Stonehorse Green and the library and the senior center and the arts projects, just all of it. It's all of us coming together and partnering to bring this wonderful, vibrant downtown Middleton. And so a bid can help in that. And I agree, Abby, that there's benefit then that, you know, you attract more residents, you attract maybe more employers, maybe more who knows what. That's where Ithaca had a ton of success. And it's really thought-provoking on how much further could we take downtown Middleton from kind of where it is right now.
Yeah, well, people would have to see the benefit. If they see the benefit, they'd be more than happy to participate. I mean, that's how it is. So I think sometime, you know, it will be having a presentation, having conversations, and then putting something together and talking to these property owners that how they will benefit. And that probably will be how we will get the buy-in. So, yeah, so any further questions? I think this is a very good discussion, and we will continue more of it. So any further questions? I don't see any raised hands.
Mike has his hand raised.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, please go ahead.
I was just looking through the statute, and it says real property used exclusively for residential purposes and real property that is exempted from general property taxes may not be specially assessed for purposes of a bid. So residents and nonprofits may not be.
Okay.
And then also under the board section, it says that the chief executive officer shall appoint members to a business improvement district board to implement the operating plan. Chief executive officer meaning the mayor. Board members shall be confirmed by the local legislative body and shall serve staggered terms designated by the local legislative body. So it's essentially a city committee of 5 to 9 members.
That is not how I understood it.
Yeah, that seemed different than what we got.
Yeah. Abby, I'm going to be returning this book to you. So if anybody wants to get it from you, it'll be available.
Okay.
So anybody wants to look at it, the statutory reference is 66.1109.
66109, huh?
Well, Mike is an attorney. I think he knows what he's saying, but I think I like, you know, that the churches and the others, city doesn't have to pay for it. So I think that makes sense. So, and Mike, go ahead.
Disagree. I think everybody should pay. I think the churches and the city should pay too. Sorry, I'm a city employee, but I still think they should.
I'm with you, Abby.
Well, if they benefit from it, sure. Yeah, you have more to say, Mike?
No, I'll take my hand down.
Okay, all right. So any further questions before we move on to the next item? I think that we have great discussion and we will keep discussing it, and Andrea will probably talk to more folks around and see where we can go. Abby, you want anything more from here?
Nope, we'll just keep working on it and report back.
All right, next item and the last item, the update on part-time marketing and event coordinator position. Abby.
Yeah, and this is a short update just to let you know that I have failed to get the position posted, and I'm sorry. I did meet with our HR director, and I came away from the meeting with an assignment, a list of things that I needed to do for him to get it posted, and I have them on my list. I just had a couple other priorities come up, so I'm going to keep it on, but it will be posted soon, and I'll let you all know when it is.
But more important is the Stonehorse Green going forward. I think that's so it was approved by the city council. Funding is there, so
contracts are signed.
Pardon me?
The contracts are also signed. I got those yesterday.
Yeah, I remember signing them. So I think so now they probably will give you the timeline when they're going to start and all of those things. So
we should know very soon.
I was going to ask, they're going to break ground?
Yeah, we don't have an exact because that's going to depend on the thaw, but they are under contract now, so they can begin ordering materials, which was something that they were worried about, the timber for the shelter building. So hopefully Joe Daniels has those on order or is quickly working on it. We do have a communication piece that we're going to be sending out to the downtown businesses. It's just a really nice one-pager that says, we're moving forward. Here's a timeline as we know it now. And then it includes Jared Benson's contact information, and he is going to be the project manager who's doing the construction management for the project. He's with Psyche Design. It has all of his contact information. He lives right around the corner from the green, and he'll be on site quite a bit, but he's also really responsive. So if any issues come up, that communication to the downtown businesses has the information that they're going to need. We also set the date and time for the bi-weekly check-in, and if I can pull it up here, let me see if I can find it. It's going to be at Grace Coffee in the morning. I think that it's on Monday morning. And I'm thinking it's at 9 a.m., but I'm not easily able to pull it up here. Daphne Shu prepared it. I thought she had sent me an email of it, but I don't know if I have it.
I thought it was a little earlier, but yeah.
Was it earlier, Kathy? Oh yeah, you
yeah,
said too.
But it's not that. It's Monday morning. That's
yeah. So all that information will be going out soon. We're gonna try. Those
are weekly updates, right? For the owner
every
business
other
people?
week.
Yeah,
so it'll be like the first and the third Monday of the month.
Yeah.
And then we'll put that out.
And great passion. Thank you for that. That communication's unbelievable. So looking forward to it. Sorry. Thanks, Abby. Go.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. We'll send it to you, Andrea, once it's ready to go. We'll post it on the Facebook page. And then we're also just going to drop some hard copies off at some of the businesses too, just to pop in. Just waiting on a nicer day, and we'll take those around.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everyone will agree. Abby, you have done a phenomenal job with this one. So, you know, with that, well, fundraising committee raising that much money, over $700,000, and bring all of this together. So let's give Abby a big hand, everyone. So good job.
It was a group effort, which Kathy and Mike were very much involved with.
Yeah, Kathy, Mike.
We have a great group. We have a great group.
Yeah,
we do. We have a great group. We are still continuing to fundraise too, which we've raised $2,000 more since we went to the city council to get the budget approval, and we're applying for a grant from AARP for $15,000, and we're just continuing to do the work to raise more money, because we're thinking that we can use that for programming as it goes forward. So
excellent. Well, any more questions for Abby, or anyone wants to offer any questions or comments other than the kudos to the fundraising committee as well as Abby and everyone else? Well, I don't see any raised hands, and anybody wants to share any stories before we adjourn? Okay, otherwise need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Second, Weber.
Okay, second by Weber. So all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
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 Well, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. This is a great group of citizens. You make a difference.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.